Well, this is your war, America. That's not me saying this. That's Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu telling Americans that this is also your war. Remember that when you go to sleep tonight. Saturday, Israeli Prime Minister Netanyahu said he told his secretary, well, it might as well be his Secretary of State, Anthony Blinken. I mean, I know it's a Freudian slip, but let's be honest. I mean, come on, who's really calling the shots here? It really is, of course, him. And he said, look, this is your war. You know, we killed nearly 24,000 people. Your hands are dirty in all of this. This is an American war. This is not just an Israeli war. And Biden fell right into place this afternoon, like a little lapdog, announcing that he's sending an additional 1,500 American soldiers to fight in the Middle East today. Great. That's on top of the thousands he's already sent. When did this happen? When did we declare war? We haven't. We haven't sent and declared war there. So this is your war in Gaza, whether you want it or not, America. We send more military and Houthi rebels will attack us. That's the goal. We'll send more and then you'll attack us. Just like they did about 2 hours ago, by the way. Watch.
It's been confirmed that the US-owned cargo ship MV Gibraltar Eagle has been hit in the Gulf of Aden by a ballistic missile fired by the Houthis in Yemen.
By the way, is that what they're wearing in England now? Like, what is that? What is that outfit?
I don't know.
Like
Tie-less coat.
It's like a tie-less coat, or like he forgot his cummerbund and he forgot like the tuxedo top.
I don't know. It looks like a combination of like traditional Indian garb and a Western suit.
Yeah,
it's like
I guess
both of those things.
Okay.
It's a mashup.
Yeah. So Israeli Prime Minister Netanyahu is also, by the way, not happy with the United States and our recruiting efforts for the United States military. Israel, of course, reportedly very concerned with U.S. recruitment crisis, and it's only gotten worse, by the way. So Israel is very concerned. Why are they so concerned about this?
Yeah, wait a second. That's none of your damn business.
Right.
We'll handle that.
We have diversity. We're allowing trans soldiers to get sex change operations. That's our business. Why is it your business, Israel? Like, we're allowed to screw up our own military. Keep your neck out of it. But of course, it's important to them because the United States is actively funneling military resources, money, weapons, and soldiers. So they're very concerned with our recruitment. It's unbelievable, actually. But it's not when you follow the money, of course. So our recruitment numbers are down.
But can we put that back up on the screen? Look at the date of this article. They were concerned about it October 9th, 2 days after the October 7th attacks. Israel already knew, America, you're going to have to start doing some push-ups because you're going to have to get over here pretty soon. 2 days. Yeah. 2 days later, they had the balls to say, oh, you're in it with us.
And that's the start of it, because you can see other news pieces in December and even later talking about U.S. and the Israeli concerns about U.S. recruitment. So that was the start of it, like 2 days afterwards.
Yeah.
Like, you guys better step it up. You guys better step it up.
You got to go to the gym because we got a war to fight, you and me, whether you want to or not.
So the Prime Minister of Israel is lecturing the United States on how to do its business, on how to send more U.S. weapons and more U.S. money to the Middle East. How do you feel? I'm just going to ask all of you watching right now. How do you feel about that? How do you feel about that as an American? And even if you're not an American, maybe you're Canadian. Maybe you're, maybe you're English, right? Maybe you're under Rishi Sunak's umbrella. How do you feel about that? Like another country lecturing us about their war. I'd be curious your thoughts on that. More on that part of the story in a second, though. But first, it used to be that Americans could choose to go to war or not. The entire country would rally behind a cause. Sure, there were false flags that were used to get you there, of course. We didn't have social media at the time to expose these false flags or shows like Redacted. We hope we try to expose false flags. That's one of our big missions here, so that people don't fall for it. But we didn't have it back then. We didn't have social media. So we then became outraged, and then we declare war. We're outraged. And most of the time, it was in America's actual interest to get involved in these wars. I'm not saying they're right, but at the very least, if we're going to go to war, it was in America's interest. In 1898, Spain had nothing to do with blowing up the USS Maine, the U.S. Navy ship. But we didn't care. America was outraged. We went to war with Spain. It was our choice. Again, this was a false flag. Spain had nothing to do with the destruction of the Maine. Didn't matter, of course. Remember the Maine, all of the newspapers said. The newspapers told us that Spain was responsible. We believed them. Americans wanted war, and it worked.
May I just point out that it rhymes with I stand with Ukraine, which
Remember
is
the Maine?
another war propaganda slogan.
Yeah.
So we're not very creative, are we?
No, but it's it's very simple, and it's 3 words, and it rolls off the tongue. But it worked. U.S. victory in the war in going after Spain was incredibly beneficial to America's interests. Again, yeah, war is awful, right? But at least it was in America's interests. And we got a peace treaty with Spain. Spain then got out of the Western Hemisphere, forced them to give up claims on Cuba. They turned over Guam. They turned over Puerto Rico. They turned over the Philippines. Holy smokes, we got a lot of money and new resources, not to mention slaves. So it was in America's interest economically, right? Again, I'm not saying that's a good thing. I'm just saying that it was in America's interest. That's a big score for us, more land, more resources for the United States. Pearl Harbor, a few days before Pearl Harbor, FDR knew all about the impending attack from Japan. Instead of moving ships out of harm's way, we did nothing. On purpose, America was attacked. We needed that event to get America rallied to join World War II, and it worked. The sleeping giant awoke. We needed this war to show Europe who's boss, to show the Soviet Union who's boss. It was our choice to go to war. Americans needed Pearl Harbor. Sure, we were duped, but it was our choice. It wasn't Benjamin Netanyahu telling us what to do. We got to decide to fall for our own false flags. We are allowed to fall for our own false flags. You don't get to tell us which false flags to fall for. And World War II was the most important war in American history, economically and strategically, in terms of turning America into a superpower. Without World War II, the U.S. dollar would not be the reserve currency of the world. Simple as that. Now the United States is going to war in Yemen, Gaza, and Iran because Israel wants us to. It doesn't help American interests in the least. Nothing, in fact, is accurate about that. No part of this is in America's interest in the Middle East right now. In fact, the only country it helps is Israel. And even that, I would argue, is a stretch. Carrying out a genocide in Gaza will likely come back to bite them in the ass. As Colonel Douglas McGregor posted this morning on X, this is going to blow up in our faces, he writes. What has happened in Gaza is not going to go away. It has left a permanent mark on the people of the region. They were told that they too are animals and they deserve the worst, that they too deserve to be exterminated. They will not tolerate this. This is going to blow up in everybody's face. And to go through that tweet thread, I mean, everyone's like, you're spot on. You're spot on. I live in that region. You're spot on. It's going to blow up in everyone's face. And that's exactly what's happening at this hour. Yeah, we're not paying attention. We are doing the exact opposite of that. Over the past few days, America has launched a series of attacks on Houthi rebels and Houthi rebel targets in Yemen.
Just days after the massive U.S.-led Red Sea assault involving American F-18 fighter jets and British Typhoons taking off from Cyprus, Houthi militants carried out drills in Yemen yesterday, less a serious military flex than a show of defiance.
Oh, okay. So it's not really a flex. It's just defiance. Is it in the United States' interest to go to war with Iran and Yemen? I just asked this of former UN weapons inspector Scott Ritter. Here's what he had to say about it.
This is a problem bigger than America. We don't have the military capacity to prevail in this conflict. Yes, we can drop bombs in a lot of places. We will lose everything in the Middle East, everything in the region, because there's not a military facility in that region that is missile proof. And Iran has a lot of missiles, and they will bring death and destruction down on the Americans like they haven't seen since the Second World War. And then what? Now we're in a regional conflict. Can we throw cruise missiles at Tehran? Yeah. But to what end? Because Tehran will destroy everything we have in the region. And then where are we? We don't have the ability to invade Iran. We can't do it. You could mobilize the entire American military capability today. We can't invade Iran. We don't have the ability. So to what end are we getting in this war? At the end of the day, the costs that will accrue by the United States taking on the entire region on behalf of Israel will far outweigh the consequences of just telling Israel no. But we can't tell Israel no because Israel owns us.
Yeah, they do own us. Let us know what you think about that in the comments. Go ahead, David.
I was going to say, it's the literal definition of insanity. Like, when have we ever gotten involved in anything over there that hasn't blown up in our face? When have we ever been successful? We haven't.
We haven't. That's my point. There has been, and I'm going to get to this here in a second, because as John Mearsheimer points out in his great book, The Israel Lobby, there's never been a strategic strike. There's never been anything we've done in the Middle East that has strategically benefited the United States. You could argue that our support of Israel a little bit during the Cold War, but that's minimal at best. And that's exactly why Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu says this is America's war. When they asked us to jump, they're asking, we ask how high. They want us to invade Iraq? Great, we did that for them. Okay, done. Want us to invade Syria? Yeah, we did that for you. By the way, today, Biden announced thousands more troops going to Syria. So sure, we'll do whatever you want. You want us to invade Yemen? We'll do that, even though it only hurts America. So as John Mearsheimer points out in his great book, The Israel Lobby, and I encourage all of you to read it, if you want to educate, it's a pretty darn long book. If you want to educate yourself, though, on how deeply Congress is controlled by Israel, you might want to take a few chapters here in bite-sized chunks if you want, but it's incredibly eye-opening. Mearsheimer says this about our support of Israel and the destruction of Gaza is the single biggest driver of terrorism against the United States. As he writes, an even clearer demonstration of the connection between U.S. support for Israel and the anti-American terrorism is the case of Ramzi Youssef, who masterminded the first attack on the World Trade Center in 1993 and is now serving a life sentence in the U.S. prison. Not only did Youssef mail letters to several New York newspapers taking credit for the attack and demanding that the U.S. terminate aid to Israel, he also told agents who flew him back to the United States following his arrest in Pakistan that in 1995 he felt guilty about causing U.S. deaths. But as Steve Cole recounts in his prize-winning book Ghost Wars, Youssef's remorse was overridden by the strength of his desire to stop the killing of Arabs by Israeli troops, and by his belief that bombing American targets was the only way to cause change. Can you imagine? Like, it's the only way. It's the only way I'm going to wake people up. That's it. I have to bomb American targets.
It was the same thing that the Orlando nightclub shooter felt.
Exactly.
Yeah, exact same.
So when
most of the time, the terrorist attacks are on our own shores, are motivated by our own killing of civilians.
Yeah. So
and we sit here and wonder why Russia doesn't want us on their borders.
Yeah. So here's what he goes on to say this in his book, a 2004 report by the Pentagon's Defense Science Board. This is by the Pentagon. The Pentagon's Defense Science Board concluded that, quote, Muslims do not hate our freedom, but rather they hate our policies. And the 9/11 Commission acknowledged that it is simply a fact that American policy regarding the Israeli-Palestinian conflict and American policy in Iraq are dominant staples of popular commentary across the Arab and Muslim world. What kind of policies do they hate? Well, they hate our support of genocide, that's for one thing, and carrying out bombing attacks in Gaza. Over the past 24 hours, we've now learned that the United States is not sitting on the sidelines carrying out genocide in Gaza. No. They're actively involved. The Biden administration is actively involved with the Air Force team to target, for Israel to target targets in Gaza using the Air Force. So about that genocide being carried out in Gaza, that will come back to haunt the United States. Mark my words. Mark the words of Colonel Douglas McGregor and others, and Mearsheimer. But don't worry about any of this, because Biden mouthpiece John Kirby yesterday said they're pushing Israel to go into what he calls now a low-intensity bombing phase. Low intensity. Watch.
Does the U.S. need to press Israel harder to move into the low-intensity conflict they say they intend to move towards?
I can tell you, and Secretary Blinken just came from the region, that we have been talking to them intensely about a transition to low-intensity operations. We believe it's the right time for that transition, and we're talking to them about doing that. Now, they have done some precursory steps to try to kind of get to that point. They're pulling some troops out. They're relying a little less on airstrikes. But we believe that, look, any military campaign, you go through phases. Yeah. And the next logical phase here, as they have put pressure on Hamas leadership, is to get to lower-intensity operations, more targeted, more precise raids, less airstrikes. We believe it's time to make that transition, and we have had that conversation with them.
Time to make that transition because it's now a detriment to U.S. national security to be giving them cover for this long?
Because it's the right thing to do in this military campaign against Hamas. They have put pressure on leadership. They have gone after that leadership. They have been able to go after some of the resourcing and infrastructure that Hamas uses to conduct these attacks. We're not saying let your foot up off the gas completely and don't keep going after Hamas. It's still a viable threat. They have every right and responsibility to go after that. It's just that we believe the time is coming here very, very soon for a transition to this lower intensity phase.
Right.
Okay, I have a lot of issues with that journalism. First of all, she should not be repeating their talking points. Let him at least regurgitate that. It makes it very clear to us that you are a mouthpiece of the White House when you're using their talking points in your question. Second of all, when she asks, oh, it's time to do that just because it's in our interest, right? And then she's implying we don't care who's died before now. Like, we don't care at all. Right. And then third, there's no low intensity war. This is not a Jane Fonda exercise video where it's like to the left, follow John, and to the right, follow Susie. If you want to just not do it, like, that's the stupidest thing I've ever heard. There's no low intensity war.
Of course, it's low intensity at this point because they've already bombed northern Gaza into rubble. So they don't need the high intensity anymore because there's no real like active target. So no, we can just use smaller bombs now because nothing's standing anyway.
Right. Yeah. He gave a little less. We're relying a little less.
And he's like, we really don't want them to pull their foot off the gas. Like we're not asking them to pull their foot off the gas.
Still the killing. Yeah. Just light killing.
Then what exactly are you doing?
We're still gonna run over the pedestrians. We're just gonna stop backing up over them afterwards.
Save some.
We're going
save
low
some
intensity.
Gas. Yeah, save some gas that way. But according to a new Axios piece over the past 24 hours, the Biden administration is running out of patience with Benjamin Netanyahu. This according to Axios. And everything we ask them to do, Netanyahu ignores it. So, Biden running out of patience with Bibi as Gaza war hits 100 days. I'm just going to quote this piece. It's pretty eye-opening. The situation sucks, and we are stuck. The president's patience is running out, one U.S. official told Axios. At every juncture, Netanyahu has given Biden the finger, says Senator Chris Van Hollen, who's been in close contact with U.S. officials about the war. They're pleading with Netanyahu coalition, but getting slapped in the face over and over again. So Margaret Brennan asked John Kirby about the middle finger that Netanyahu and Israel, basically, they know they run us. They own us. The Israeli lobby, of course, runs everybody in Washington, D.C. with their money. So they completely own the United States. And so Margaret Brennan asked John Kirby about this middle finger comment, and here's his response.
The quote in Axios is, at every juncture, the Netanyahu government has given Biden the finger. That the White House is just being told, we don't care.
We have had intense conversations with the Israelis. We know that those conversations have had effects, Margaret. I mean, they went into North Gaza with a much smaller force than they were originally planned to because we gave them some advice about what our experiences were in places like Mosul and Fallujah. We've seen them now establish humanitarian corridors. We've seen them drop leaflets telling people where to go, where not to go. I mean, that's basically telegraphing your punches, and not a lot of modern militaries would do that. I'm not saying it's perfect. And we're certainly not walking away from the need to reduce civilian casualties and get more humanitarian aid in. It's getting in a couple hundred trucks a day, not enough. Yeah. And we're going to keep that. We're going to keep having those conversations with them.
Well, yeah. So that's the kind of conversations we're going to have. We asked them to drop leaflets. We asked them to drop flyers. Like, come to our garage sale this weekend. So we've done that. Netanyahu listened to us when we asked him to drop flyers.
I get so irritated when I hear we're trying so hard to get humanitarian aid. Is that so that they can be, nourished and hydrated when they kill them? Just frustrates the hell out of me. Let's get them some aid, and then you can go back to your bombing.
You can go back to carpet bombing them. Yeah.
Right. Good point.
So they're really listening to us. The double standard is clear. Support for Israel is more important than the United States. So our leaders in Washington care more about Israel than they do about the United States of America.
But when you look at the history of at least the last 40 years of Israel, it's clear that the economy there was not burgeoning in the 70s and 80s. And it relied actually a lot on philanthropy from wealthy Jewish people in the United States. So it's kind of a virtuous circle, because they would be nothing without American money being funneled back into Israeli causes. And then that money then goes into lobbyists to lobby our own politicians, right? So a lot of it starts with Americans. It starts and ends with Americans.
Right. We have an opportunity to say enough is enough, and we're only hurting ourselves.
We're not going to do that.
No, I would encourage everyone to read John Mearsheimer's great book on the Israel lobby. It's a very incredibly well-researched book, and he really lays out point by point how every time at every turn where we've put Israel's interest over the United States, it's come back to hurt us. There is literally no reason that it's
and Jews, right? And Israelis is the point that he makes. It's bad for everybody.
Well, it's bad. Yeah. Well, it's particularly bad for Israel. Israel's being destroyed. Israel, I don't know that Israel can really come back from this in terms of survivability. I mean, they're going to be, as Colonel McGregor has pointed out, this could, first of all, it'll be the end of the Netanyahu government, but it could very well alter the course of Israel forever as a result of what they're doing here. Yeah. So going to war in Yemen and Iran, hurting the United States, it could be the greatest, I'm going to say this, it could be the greatest military mistake in U.S. history. Going to war against Iran and Yemen.
We make them all the time, Phil.
We make huge mistakes all the time. But what we're doing right now in the Middle East could be unalterable. And you could be watching, as a result of this, the permanent loss of superpower status for the United States government and the United States. United States. I mean, that's literally what's going to happen here if they continue down this path.
Look at all the stuff we've done in the past, and the debt was never as high as it is when we've done it. You know what I mean? So you take that and add it on top of it. I mean, look at how Rome fell. I mean, It's like we economically shouldn't do it.
Yeah. No, VK Love says, but you defend Hamas. We're not defending. Hamas is a terrorist organization.
Where'd you get that?
That has nothing to do. What we're saying is it in the United States? Well, my question started out this piece, if you go back and watch it. Is it in the United States' interest to send thousands of Americans into the Middle East? Is it in the United States' interest to attack Yemen? Is it in the United States' interest to bomb Iran or Iranian targets? Is it in the United States' interest to invade Syria? The answer is unequivocally no. Is it in the United States' interest to pump weapons and munitions and bombs and target information into Israel to strike Gaza? No, it's not. Absolutely not. You can't. There's no way you can point out that that's actually in the United States' interest. There is no benefit of that at all. So that's my opinion on this. But I think this could be the greatest military mistake in U.S. history, and I'm going to say it right now.
Yes, and so then, by that comment, if we have not said that Israel needs to continue to attack in order to only root out Hamas, you're guilty of binary thinking, and we don't have time for that here on this show.
Yeah, it's like if I want to go get a quarter pounder cheese, that doesn't mean I hate the Whopper.
Right.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, quarter pounder with cheese meal, fantastic choice. I think that's number 4 on the value meal standard. Number 4, I think number 7 is the fillet of fish.
Yeah.
Number 8 is the fillet of fish.
Yeah, I can't deal with that reductionism. So yeah, I don't have time for that.
No, we're past that. Like that ship has sailed many months ago. So that means you support what happened on October 7th?
Right.
No. Come on, stop it. Stop this ridiculous reductive thinking. Now, I also want to know, why did Israel allow October 7th to happen? And they knew about it well ahead of time and told their military to stand down on purpose. So now the United States is embroiled in this. That's a better question. Why did they do that? I would love to get to the bottom of that, but they won't allow an investigation of it. Netanyahu will not allow an investigation of what happened on October 7th, of course, because they don't want the answers. Thank you so much for watching this segment here at Redacted. We are live every day at 4 p.m. Eastern Time, trying to share the stories that the mainstream media will not cover. You should also come over and join our community of Redacted Rebels over at redacted.inc. That's our private locals community where we can share exclusive content that we simply cannot share here on YouTube. Come over and join the rebellion together right now by going to redacted.inc. We'll see you next time.